Voodoo, an out of control plane ride from hell, and a trip to the infamous hospital. That was my weekend. You are now within minutes of horror. And in this video, we're going to look at my own plane ride. Now, you have been listening to me for months talk about horrifying plane incidents, whether it's people seeing something, a door blowing off, or maggots just raining down on people. I have been the one talking about it. So you would think out of all people, I would be the last one to actually fly on a plane. And I know it sounds like I spread fear a lot, but to be honest with you, I'm actually looking forward to going on my next plane ride. And the reason why that is, even though I talk about these plane incidents, because something going wrong on a plane is a nightmare scenario. There's nowhere to go. You're up in the skies around 30 to 40,000 feet. So when something does go wrong, it's almost like a horror movie. That is a lot coming from me out of all people. Because once you get on 95 to the airport, driving on 95 is probably the most dangerous thing you're gonna do on the plane, actually getting to the plane. I can't tell you how many drunks almost crashed into us. And I know we feel more control down on the ground, we feel more control behind the car, but we can't control what other drivers do. So having my experience on 95 where we almost got into multiple accidents due to drunk drivers really alleviated my fear of flying for the time being. Now later on in the story, it does come back. But as we were going to the actual airport, I was more alleviated because the only thing I wanted to do was get off 95, which we were driving late at night. But once we got to the actual airport, it was smooth. The flight was smooth and we were going with 4 other people. I put my headphones in, I had a gaming console, and it was only a 2-hour flight to New Orleans. We get to New Orleans and everything is fine. We're having a great time until we hit the French Quarter Marketplace. Now, when it comes to voodoo, when it comes to hoodoo, I will go ahead and say that I really know nothing about it. I do know that Hollywood tends to dramatize certain things, especially things like voodoo and hoodoo, to make it more appealing to sell, to make it seem more evil, so they can go ahead and sell movies and things like that. But whether it's good, whether it's bad, I don't go near it because I don't know anything about it. And it's just not voodoo, but any other type of religion, including Catholicism. You won't see me going to a priest because, again, I know nothing about Catholicism. I won't bash your religion, I won't insult it, but I don't have to learn about it because I just won't talk about it. So with that being said, I'm at a store looking for a bracelet for my daughter, and I look behind me and my wife's not there. I look over and she happens to be in front of a lady who's selling voodoo dolls. So I walk over there. My wife is continuing to talk to this lady. She asked the lady, an older lady, are these voodoo dolls real? And the lady says, yes, they're very real, but there's a misconception about these voodoo dolls that Hollywood tends to make them more evil than what they are because they're meant for healing and spirituality. So she pulls out this all black doll with a pin inside of it, and I just lean over to look, and my wife yells out, don't touch it, don't touch it. Instantly offending this lady. And she says, you need to educate yourself about voodoo. And then she starts humming and rocking back and forth. Instantly, my ass cheeks clamp up because I'm thinking to myself, great, you offended this lady and we have a plane ride to go back home. If you saw how she was humming, how she was rocking back and forth, and how angry she got, you would think exactly what I thought, is that she put some type of hex or some curse on us. Because I swear I might be over exaggerating, but it looked like her eyes rolled in the back of her head. So I think to myself, great, there's some kind of hex or some curse on us. My mood went from excitement, having a good time, to now worried. Because we have a 2-hour plane ride going back home, and the only thing I can think about is the plane going down. So the 2 days are over, we head back to the airport to go back home, and once we're at the airport, my friend tells me there's been a delay in the plane, and I'm thinking to myself, oh great, what caused this delay? It's a 10 to 20 minute delay, but it's still a delay nonetheless. I look at the website to see what's causing the delay, and come to find out there is a huge thunderstorm where we're heading into. So I'm panicking and I'm asking my friend what happens from here. Do we actually fly into the thunderstorm? And he tells me no. What they'll do is one of 2 things, depending on how strong the thunderstorm is. You either fly above it or they'll fly around it. But I'm still worried because this thunderstorm, it was encompassing all of Florida. I'm thinking to myself, How are they going to fly around this? They're going to have to fly above it. So once we get on the plane, the flight attendants tell us that the pilot wants us all to remain buckled in for the remainder of the flight. We cannot leave our seats because the turbulence is going to be very rocky. They don't want to take any chances. So I'm sitting in my seat, I'm looking all around, I'm panicking, I'm sweating beads. There's this man behind me with his family. He looks at me, he sees how I'm acting, and he thinks instantly I'm an MFer that's not real, because like I said, how I was acting, I was very worried. So he became worried. So we take off, and that's when things go from bad to worse, because about 30 minutes into the flight, my wife starts to tell me she has a migraine, and I look at her and she's turning pale. And she says, I need to throw up. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm trying to calm her down. I'm trying to do all I can to make her feel comfortable. But I'm thinking to myself, oh, great. I just covered a story where a person either had feces all up and down the aisle or they threw up in their seat. Now I'm going to be in my own news story. So now I have my own wife sitting next to me telling me she's about to throw up because of how much turbulence there was on the plane. She was getting motion sickness. So I'm trying to calm her down, I'm trying to relax her, but I tell one of the flight attendants, can we please get a large trash bag because you don't want us to get up to go to the bathroom. She's gonna have to throw up. So they give her a trash bag and she starts vomiting all inside the bag. And you can hear her gagging. So even though the flight was very turbulent and we had an hour left into the flight, I stopped thinking about myself, I stopped thinking about the plane. All my thoughts are with my wife because she's looking absolutely terrible. This is the first time she's ever gotten sick on a plane, let alone throw up on a plane. And she's taken many flights previously. So like I said, all my thoughts were with my wife until things went from worse to catastrophic. Now, we had 2 flight attendants and they were absolutely amazing. They were cracking jokes, they were joking with each other, pretty much to lighten the mood because they saw how terrified everybody was on the plane. Some people are used to turbulence, some people are not, and they can see that most of us were not. They were trying to lighten the mood, and that was until they get a phone call from the captain. The man turns white as a ghost, and I can overhear him because we were sitting in the front. So I can overhear him say to the female flight attendant that the pilot is having a very hard time controlling the plane. At this point, I start to boohoo cry. I start to ugly cry. The flight attendants look at me and I say, well, it's because I'm worried about my wife. But in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, no, I heard what you said. This is it. That is when we felt the plane nosedive. We felt the plane dip. And I know sometimes that can happen on planes, but I wasn't prepared for it. It felt like it was going down a long hill. And like your stomach, you can feel it all in your stomach. Everybody, including the flight attendants, are screaming on the plane. My wife threw up again. It was just a chaotic scene. But luckily, the pilots were able to get control of the plane again. Once we land, I get up out of my seat. I have snot and bubble guts. I help my wife out, and my wife tells me she's still not feeling well. She has motion sickness. She still has a migraine. I asked her, do you want me to call 911? And she says, no, but can we stay here one more night? Because once we left the airport, we had another 2-hour drive to head back home, but she wanted to stay there one more night where we were at, get a hotel, and just rest it out. She tells me she can't walk. She still feels dizzy. Can I get a wheelchair? She needs fresh air. We need to leave as soon as possible so she can get some fresh air. Get the wheelchair, and I'm trying to rush out of this airport while at the same time, I'm trying to call for a hotel stay to see if anybody can book us in right away. So I'm fumbling with my phone. I'm trying to rush my wife out of the airport, and I ended up tripping over my own ankle. And the only thing I can think to do was to yell out, "Oh, Poppy, I." And I don't even know where that came from because I don't even speak Spanish. So I fell on the ground hard while yelling out, "Oh, Poppy." I lose complete control of my wife's wheelchair. She has her head back. She has her eyes closed. She thinks I'm pushing her. But here I am laying on the floor while she's still rolling ahead of me. I'm yelling out, "Somebody stop that wheelchair," and nobody is helping us. So I had to get up off the floor and I'm hopping as fast as I could to her wheelchair. So I finally get control of her wheelchair. We head outside. I'm calling for an Uber. Of course, it's still raining. And the Uber guy can't find us. When I think it's his vehicle, I go and approach the vehicle. I'm putting my bags in. I even put my wife in. And the guy tells me, "I'm not an Uber. What are you doing?" Take the bags out, take my wife out. And the Uber finally found us after 3 attempts of putting my bags into somebody else's car, thinking it was the Uber. So we finally get to the hotel. We get to the hotel lobby and I asked my wife to go sit down and I noticed she's actually getting worse. So I said, screw it. I'm calling 911. We need somebody to come out here to check your vitals. The ambulance arrives, paramedics arrive. My wife's crying. She's very nervous. She's very worried because she never felt anything like this before. She thought maybe she was poisoned from the Starbucks inside the airport, but she's very, very worried. So the ambulance arrives, they take my wife, they allowed me to go with her inside the ambulance. The paramedics were very nice, they were able to calm her down. We arrived to the hospital, they take my wife out on a stretcher, and as I start to hop down, I miss the step and land on the same foot. Again, for whatever reason, the only thing I can think of was, "Aye!" But I'm hopping along behind the paramedics. The paramedics tell me that I need to get that checked out. So my wife and I both had to be admitted into the hospital. But the only thing I can think of is my wife. I'm like, no, I'm fine. I just want to get my wife taken care of. But I couldn't walk, so they had to admit me. But after a while, the doctors and the nurses came. They were able to get my wife back to normal. They said she experienced very bad motion sickness, which led to a drop in blood pressure. And it was the right thing to come to the hospital because she was actually getting worse. They were able to give her some medicine, some anti-nausea medicine, and she was feeling better. I got x-rays, come to find out I have a sprain in my ankle. We're back home now, but that was just a horrifying experience coming back, especially on the plane. Even more so, hearing the flight attendants talk about how the pilot is having a hard time controlling the plane. Now, would I go back on another plane? Yeah, I think I would, even though that experience was terrifying. Like I said, it's a lot more terrifying driving on things like 95, 75, or even walking in the street. There was one story I heard where a plane crashed into a car on 95, and perhaps that person in the car was thinking to themselves, I will never get on a plane. And here a plane came to them. Just don't live life in fear, live life to the fullest. Planes statistically are still the safest way to travel. I know when they crash, there is almost a zero chance of survival. But if you're driving in a car and somebody going 90 to 100 miles per hour drunk crashes into you, you really don't have much of a chance to survive then either. Somebody can crash into you with their car while you're walking down a sidewalk. But these plane stories are still very fun to tell. They are still very scary because, like I said, if something goes wrong on a plane, you really have nowhere to go. And again, for those afraid of heights like I am, you're 30 to 40,000 feet in the air. But that was my own terrifying plane story. I still had a lot of fun in New Orleans, and I do look forward to going somewhere else. But with that being said, normal video creation will begin again on Wednesday. I do have more stories to tell, this time not of myself of course, but we do have some things to talk about. So if you like this channel and you want to see more, please subscribe. If you're already subscribed, please like, as any engagement does help the channel grow. Once again, thank you so much for your support.